What's going on, guys? Andrew of Newbark Gaming back here, and welcome to today's episode of Newbark News for January 30th, 2019. Now, to start off today, we've got an article coming at us from Polygon regarding the PC gaming community. For a long time now, Steam's essentially had the PC gaming on a lockdown with their massive library of games, their several times a year major sales that they have, and just having an overall really large established player base. Now, Epic Games is now trying to compete with them, offering a online store where you can download things and essentially offering like a player system sort of like Steam in and of itself, right? Problem is, Steam's already got the established player base, so you've got to manage to win over some players, and that's where today's news article basically comes into play. Epic Games is now managing to pull in some developers in order to have either exclusive or temporarily exclusive titles on their service. Metro Exodus is now a recent title that's been added to that list. Now, for those of you that pre-order this game through Steam, don't stress, your pre-order will still be honored and everything else, but no more pre-orders are being taken for that game through Steam. Instead, Metro Exodus is going to be an exclusive to the Epic Games online service for 1 year. So with that being the case, you want to play this game, you'll have to go through them, and that is joining an already existing lineup of these games that it seems like may continue to grow. Epic Games is offering a really good deal for developers. Essentially what they've done is increase the amount of profit the developers make off of each of these copies of games sold. And that makes a big deal if you're a developer. The problem is, why wouldn't all developers just go over to this, right? The problem is they don't have the established player base. So now they're trying to use these exclusives to rope them in. They're also doing some price cuts on newer games, i.e. Metro Exodus is going to be $50 if you do it through the Epic Games thing versus the previous price listing on Steam was $60. So essentially they're squeezing out their own profit margins in order to make it so people can save some money on the newer games and the companies can make more money on the newer games. Big problem for them there in terms of trying to compete with the price thing is I don't know if they've got the power right now to be able to compete with Steam's massive sales they have several times a year, like the winter sale where games go on sale for as much as like 75-80% off some days, and some of those are really big titles as well. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out, guys. I think competition is usually a healthy thing in the games industry. It usually encourages companies actually developing things, being creative, adding some more features for players, that type of thing, because now they've got to be outperforming the other company at all times. And as a player, I think we usually benefit from this. So with all that being said, let's go and jump into our second article of the day. And this one is coming to us from Games Radar Plus, and it's around WB Montreal Gaming Studio and the possibility of them maybe having a Batman Arkham game coming to us later this year. Now, rumors have circulated in the past, including a tweet that kind of popped up and then disappeared again, about the possibility of a Batman Arkham game revolving around the Court of Owls comic book storyline being in development. We also know that WB Games has announced that they have 2 games in development using the DC Comics license, and Batman's been an extremely successful property for them in the past, i.e. the Batman Arkham series. We also know that they have a project in the works titled Project 2019, and that they are working on a game involving the Unreal Engine 4. So all this does seem to point to we probably have something coming out later this year, we just don't know what it is necessarily yet. Now, that being said, this latest rumor comes from a game tester that is saying that that Court of Owls game is indeed coming out, and it does indeed have a fall 2019 release date, and it's going to have a absolutely massive open world, approximately 3 times the size of the one that was seen in GTA 5. So this does sound like it could be a really incredible title if it were to come out, and I'd be curious to see how the Batman Arkham engine has evolved. I haven't touched any of those games since Arkham City, but I did find Marvel's Spider-Man to have developed a lot of the ideas initially introduced through those Arkham games and developed them in an incredibly comfortable and fun way to play. Now, according to the rumor, if this is all going to come to fruition, WB Games will be making their announcement about the next Batman game in March 2019, which is only about a month away at this point, and the game will be titled Batman Arkham Crisis. So we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that one. I think it could be a really cool game to come out later this year. I do hope that the games have maybe evolved a little bit since Arkham City. I felt that game got a little bit repetitive towards the end, but maybe that's just me. It was an overall really well-built game. So let's go ahead and move on to some PlayStation news. Now, these next 2 articles are both going to be focused around if you have a PlayStation Plus membership. First one coming out from GameSpot is essentially revealing that even though Sony's basically going after this month from 6 free games a month down to 2 because they're dropping free support games for PlayStation 3 and PS Vita if you're a PS Plus member, but they are compensating just a little bit by increasing the cloud storage you're going to have available. It's going to go from the current 10 gigabytes, which can be used for save data and those types of things, all the way up to 100 gigabytes, which is pretty good considering basically in order to even play on a home console these days, you have to have a pretty good amount of onboard memory. I mean, for games I have the discs for, sometimes just to install them, it still takes upwards of 40 gigabytes, which to me is just a little bit mind-boggling. Get me wrong, I'm still happy to play the games. They're great games, and I understand games have grown a lot, so it is a pretty nice perk that they're doing that for us, even though it's nothing compared to 6 free games a month as opposed to 2. Now, while we're on the topic of PlayStation Plus, we did have another article coming our way from PushSquare.com, where we essentially have been given the games for PlayStation Plus for February. Now on PlayStation 4, we're going to have For Honor and Hitman the complete first season. For Honor being a game that's focused around like brawling and like samurais and knights and has some multiplayer and apparently a really neat combat system. Hitman being a pretty well-known shooter franchise. Then you've got Gunhouse and Rogue Aces that are going to be available on PlayStation 4 and the Vita because of cross-play compatibility. Then for PlayStation 3, we're getting Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, which is kind of our big release for the month. Kind of nice to see a AAA title coming out for free, with it being the send-off month for the Vita and PlayStation 3 in terms of free PSN games. And lastly, Dive Kick is going to be available on the Vita as well. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be a pretty decent lineup for February. I have to say, I was hoping they would give us maybe a little more in terms of the AAA category, maybe something really awesome like the Ratchet & Clank trilogy for the Vita and PlayStation 3 send-off, but I was probably a little overly optimistic there. I still love both of those consoles dearly, so I'll definitely still be playing them even without the free games each month. So with all that being said, let's move on to some Nintendo news, and we'll start off with another kind of sad online service discontinuation. Now this one's coming to us straight from Nintendo's website, and it was essentially a reminder that the Wii Shop was closing on January 30th, 2019. Now, we've been aware of this for a while now. It's just we've actually reached the date, and it's pretty sad to see that go. Back in its day, the Wii Shop was a pretty amazing way to get some vintage game action on. It had an incredibly large library of games, all at a pretty reasonable price, usually averaging $10 or lower, to be able to experience these retro games, and that's something that's not necessarily as easily as accessible as it used to be, with a lot of major emulator sites being taken down, as well as ROM sites, and the eShop support that we saw on, say, the Wii Shop channel, not necessarily ever finding its equivalent on the current eShop that you have access to on, say, the Wii U, the Switch, 3DS, those types of consoles. So it's kind of sad, especially if you're a retro gamer, and it's kind of sad to realize that, wait a second, the Wii was that long ago that we're now seeing online functionality being completely discontinued. This also discontinues any video services being used on the Wii like YouTube and Netflix as well. All of which, it's kind of sad to see it, but it's also pretty nostalgic to look back and remember all the good times that I had with the Wii. So I hope you guys are enjoying remembering the good times you had with the Wii if you had one as well. It was a really cool console back in its day, even if there was a lot of games that use motion controls really poorly. So on a brighter note coming from Nintendo, this is going to be from an article coming at us from Polygon, where the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate update, which drops Piranha Plant as being a new character, has finally been dropped. Now, if you bought the game pre-January 31st and registered it through the Nintendo eShop, then you're getting this character for free, which is awesome. But they will be adding it for those of us that got it later via the eShop later as downloadable content. So we've got a new character being introduced. They also added a lot of balance patch, fixed some glitches, and added a really neat new feature in that now you can do up to 4-player co-op on Spirit Mode, which I think is really cool. It brings Spirit Mode a little bit closer to the old Subspace Emissary action we had going on in Brawl, which I still think is a really fun co-op campaign to play through on the Wii. So with all being said, guys, that's going to wrap up today's Newbark News feed. If you had any thoughts, additional theories, comments, etc., be sure to leave them in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and I'll catch you guys next time with some more video game news.